Hello, true duelists. YGO Strats here, actively thinking about how much I'm going to dread having to Google Harpie memes that can go on the background here that won't get this video age restricted because some of y'all are degenerate. Welcome to You Should Play. I've renamed it, a series where I talk a bit about why I play and why maybe you might want to play various decks. This week I'm talking about Harpies, one of the earliest archetypes in the game, and a deck that has got a bit of a legacy, at least in terms of my friends in my group. The Harpie deck that my friend first played back in like 2013, that he ended up trading to another friend in 2014, and then some years later was resold to me, right here in my hands. There is an easy joke here, I suppose, about, I don't know, herpes, but that's both uncomfortable to think about, considering it was with two of my oldest and closest friends, and also it doesn't really seem all that funny. Get it? The A is an E. Please laugh and like. Surely I can do better. God, I hope I can do better. So instead, I'm just gonna shove in a Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants joke that really doesn't work at any... I clearly cannot do better. This is what my brain has gone to. Fuck it. I actually do have the cards here, just for a change of pace. Look, you can probably barely see them. My camera's at the other side of the room, but there's a Draco sack in it too, like, so you know this deck's garbage. My version of the deck, just to be clear here, I'm not looking to cosplay an MBT video and get myself canceled by a Yu-Gi-Oh community, but moving on. Harpies already have an archetype archive from Rada covering all of the great cards that encompass the entirety of this archetype. Most importantly, Birdface. An instant 3 of in any Harpie deck made by someone who can appreciate true comedy, or who just hates winning. It's something of a fan favorite archetype, or at the very least, it was featured in the original anime and is therefore nostalgic. And that means it will be getting support until the end of time, which will always work as a favor to pick up a deck. At some point in the future, you'll get new toys to play with, and sometimes they'll be dragons. What a rare and unexpected feature of a Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Still, it's a fun combo deck that over the years has evolved to give it new and different ways to play, all while giving some love to the oldest cards in the deck, which is nice to see even if it does come at the cost of, you know, competitive viability. So let's talk about some of those cards, starting with the original Harpies themselves. The whole archetype revolves around Harpie Lady, of which there are technically 5 versions for you to play. There's the vanilla that the deck is based around, and then there's Harpie Ladies 1, 2, 3, and Cyber Harpie Lady. All 4 of these have conditions, not effects, that their name is always treated as Harpie Lady, and that does mean always. On the field, in the hand, in the grave, when banished, and most importantly, in the deck, which means that the game rule of no more than 3 copies of any individual card does apply to the entirety of them. So of the 15 cards that are legal, you can only play 3 of them in your deck. Harpie is, I think, the only deck with this unique little, I don't know, gimmick? What is it? Whatever. This is the only, Harpie's the only deck that does this. So pick 3. Back in the day, I played Cyber Harpie Lady, which is actually what's still in here. This is built for a 2014 format, but that's just because it has the highest attack stat, and I'm ignorant. If I'm going to top deck a Garnet, I want it to be at least one I can beat someone over the head with, and 1800's a decent way to go about that. These days, when playing a more modern version of the deck, Harpie Lady 1 is my number 1, fittingly enough, giving all wind monsters 300 attack. It effectively makes itself 1600 attack, and then helps to get a little bit of an extra boost of damage from everything else. 2 and 3 are useless, negating flip effects and stopping the attacks from monsters that battle it for 2 turns. Wow! The vanilla has better use by virtue of being an unexpected die target than those 2, which isn't important with cards like Egotist, but it's still more than the other 2 can say about themselves, which really, all they can say is that they suck, and I will say that for them. Play whichever you like, but if you ask me, it's either Cyber Harpie or Harpie 1. The next good one that I like follows the trend of a number of 2014 monsters, in that it is a solid, if not great monster, ruined by the existence of Ash Blossom. Harpie Channeler can discard a Harpie card to summon a Harpie monster from the deck. An instant rank 4 or a link 2 in the modern day, but also a potential instant rank 7, because it has the effect to become level 7 while you control a dragon-type monster, which pairs well with not only Harpie's pet dragon, a valid target to summon off of Channeler's first effect, but also Tempest, the dragon ruler who fits incredibly easy into this deck as well. This technically means that with enough extra deck commitment and by playing a Garnet, you can summon Harpie's pet dragon, turn it into a Draco Sack, turn those tokens into something else, and Link climb. And with Tempest, you can make the most underwhelming Link 4 play someone has ever seen. Just something to think about. Dancer is a card that was played some time ago who fell out of the deck when it got better support, but when I first played it, this comboed beautifully with Divine Wind of the Mist Valley to make for another instant rank 4. Guess what this deck does? If only that card wasn't still limited, this would be more viable today, but as it stands, not really worth playing unless you were playing in a 2014-esque format. The same also applies to Harpie Queen, the 1900 discard to search the field spell that like 8 decks got in GX era for some reason. You could play it if you want, but these days there are newer cards that can accomplish the same thing with better results. Namely Perfumer. Able to special summon itself from the hand to your field if you control a level 5 or higher Harpie monster, and when normal or specialed, it adds a spell or trap from deck to hand that includes Harpie Lady Sisters in its text. That does include the field spell, so yes, Queen, but also no to the Queen. Better yet, if you control a level 5 or higher Harpie when activating Perfumer's effect, you can add 2 cards from deck to hand instead of 1. Yeah, that's right, this is a +1 if you've got the right board going. This has effectively replaced the Queen entirely and earned itself a spot of 3 of, not only for swarming, but for the ability to, like I said, +1. And also because it references the anime. For some people, that does matter. For me, the same applies to Oracle. It's an anime reference. It has the same effect to summon itself from hand when you've got a level 5 or higher Harpie, and it adds a spell or trap that lists Harpie Lady Sisters from grave to hand. Unfortunately, it adds it at the end phase, so that is disappointing to say the least. But recovery is recovery. Harpist is another solid card worth playing. On normal summon, it can target another winged beast you control and a face-up opponent's monster to return them both to the hand, which is okay, but the actual reason to play it is that during the end phase, if it was sent to the grave that turn, it adds a level 4 winged beast with 1500 attack from deck to hand. That'll almost always be another Harpie card, but you could add Winged Dragon Guardian of the Fortress number 2. Did you know that that is not a dragon? It's a winged beast. I had no idea. It isn't in the TCG yet at the time of me filming this, or miraculously at the time of me writing this script, because it was confirmed to be coming out in Legendary Duelist Season 3, so by the time you're watching it, good chances are it's already out. But the new Harpie's Pet Dragon Fearsome Fire Blast stands to replace the original dragon entirely. It's a level 7, so it pairs well with Channeler, but unlike the horrible, I never want to see this shit in my hand ever Garnet status that the original has earned for itself, this one at least has an effect to summon itself from the hand. You just need to control a level 6 or lower wind monster. It makes it so the opponent can't target level 6 or lower Harpies for attacks, and when sent from field to grave, can foolish a winged beast to the grave. Harpist synergy. You'll love to see it. This card will fully replace the original unless you love the idea of having a potential 3500 beater that only the original pet dragon can grant you. Whoa, 3500 could beat over a Dragoon, maybe. This joke is funny because both nobody plays the dragon and also nobody's playing Dragoon anymore either. For the extra deck, they've got 3 cards. First up is the Xyz. It needs 3 level 4 winds and has a strong 2000 attack. And while it has a material, the opponent cannot target Harpie monsters with attacks, card effects, and it allows itself to attack directly. The catch is, you have to detach a material during each end phase. It's not as good as it was back in the day, but man, I do love getting this card out and then just attacking for game 3 turns in a row. Very satisfying. They have a link to as well, Harpie Conductor. It just needs 2 wins and points down left, down right, a solid 2k attack as well, and has 2 effects that you can use each turn. If a Harpie monster or monsters would be destroyed, you can instead destroy a spell or trap you control, and if another Harpie you control is returned to the hand, you can target and bounce 1 special summon monster the opponent controls. Decent. They also hilariously and completely randomly got a synchro monster, which is strange seeing as they don't have a tuner. So to make up for that, Konami just made it so you don't need one. You can just use 2 Harpie monsters and treat one of them as a tuner. And since they're all level 4, it's just any 2 Harpies. It's basically a Link 2, but with a level, which helps for those Oracle and Perfumer plays. Its effect is that whenever a spell or trap card is activated, you can bounce either a Harpie you control or any monster the opponent controls. On top of being a 2600 beater, it also makes for a decent boss monster of sorts. And it helps that it'll trigger either off your spell or trap or the opponent's, depending on how you want to use it. For their spell and trap lineup, they do have some neat tech, The field spell will give each winged beast 200 attack and defense, but more importantly has the effect to pop a spell or trap on the field whenever a Harpie Lady or Harpie Lady Sisters is summoned. Gives the home deck of Feather Duster even more means of spell and trap removal, and it's also mandatory. So if there are no other spell or trap on the field, you will pop this card. No choice. But even if you have to pop one of your own cards, this archetype has one that you'll love to see destroyed. Hysteric Party is a continuous spell that on activation will add an Elegant Egotist from grave or deck to hand. It's a nice extender, but its best effect is that if it's sent from hand or field to the graveyard, it adds up to 3 differently named Harpie cards from deck to hand. That is an insane plus, and makes for a very deadly crackback on the next turn if the opponent isn't able to kill you. It can also search the busted ass trap card that this deck has that is insanely degenerate, but I'll get to that in a moment. Elegant Egotist is searchable like Sign as mentioned, and is simply an unexpected die for Harpies. If you control a Harpie, you can special summon a Harpie Lady from hand or deck, and it's the big reason you still play the original Harpie Lady. It isn't snowflakes on that card out, by the way, that's reflections of Harpie Lady's face. I've played this deck on and off for roughly 8 years, and I realized that in the last couple of months. Look, in my defense, I just need to read card text, I don't need to study the art. The other spell I play is Feather Rest, which shuffles any 3 Harpie Lady or Harpie Lady Sisters from grave into deck to draw 1, or if you control a level 5 or higher Harpie when you activated it, you'll draw 2 cards instead. You can only use 1 per turn, and after you use it, you're locked into only special summoning wind monsters. So it's best used at the end of the turn if you want to be playing it. I've only ever played 2 of their trap cards. Hysteric Party is a soul charge for the deck, able to revive any of your Harpies that aren't dragons, including the Synchro or Link. The only downside is that it is a trap and you'll need to discard a card to use it. But you can revive the card you discarded to activate it, as long as you discarded one of your Harpies. Not bad. The other trap you're probably already aware of if you've been playing in the meta of 2022, because Fluandereeze needs more ways to be awful to play against. Harpie Featherstorm is only usable if you control a wind-winged beast, but if you do, it negates any monster effect the opponent activates. Yep, just VFD in a trap card. And if you control a Harpie, you can use it from the hand, so you don't even need to set this card. But it's okay, because if you do, and it gets destroyed by the opponent, it searches Feather Duster, because it being VFD just wasn't enough, I suppose. This will almost certainly end up on the ban list at some point, and if it doesn't, it should. And that right there is the core of the deck. I could tell you that Harpie's Feather Duster is also, one of their good cards, but you already know that, and let's be real, that's as much of a Harpie card as it is an anti-paleo card or an anti-Elba. It's its own category. Moving on, there are a handful of other cards I didn't care to mention. A spell that makes your Harpies Yang Zings, a trap that needs a Harpie in hand, grave, and a deck for its effect to go off, and an equip spell. Oh, magic. And best of all is a spell that makes Harpie Lady Sisters gain 750 attack points, and then it negates traps. Oh, what a card. Everyone should be playing that one. Really though, I like this deck mostly for its simplicity and consistency. Over the course of the pandemic, a few of my friends who used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Got back into the game to try and fight against the existential unending boredom that was those 2 past years. And so, for those who hadn't played the game in some number of years, it meant that they were jumping in for, I think they had last played Ignoring Zodiac, but playing in that format with leftover 2016 meta kind of cards. and they were jumping into a format with Nibiru and Dark Veil No More, and
Negate!
as well as Sky Striker, since that deck will just never fucking die. So to ease them back into the game, rather than play Phantom Knights or Adamancipator and build big-ass boards of Negate and Disruption that they were still trying to figure out how to navigate through and just be a miserable experience for them, I used this deck. Harpie is, with the exception of this horrible piece of card design, a very fair deck. The boss monster is a bounce. It spams out rank 4s with ease, which can be converted into link climbing if that's your preference, but again, getting people back into the game, rank 4s felt more at home for me. Castell's still pretty great for shuffling cards into the decks, you know, long before Unicorn was. Dweller is a fantastic piece of hate for any deck using the graveyard, and Exciton Knight will still reward me for playing poorly. And thanks to Harpies being wind attribute winged beasts, they have access to 2 specific great rank 4s. Lightning Chidori can clear a set card on summon and can detach material to put a card from the opponent's field on top of the deck to soft Rise-a-Lock them, and I can pretend it's 2007 in that way. Sort of. And there's also Ice Beast Zerofine, who needs 2 winged beasts and can detach a material to negate the effects of all face-up cards the opponent controls until your next standby phase. And it gains 300 attack for each face-up card on the field, other than itself, when activating that effect, so it's a massive negate and also a massive beater. It almost never resolves, but when it does, it's very hard to lose. There's also a tidbit I completely forgot to mention, so I am going to throw it in here. All the Harpie monsters are treated as Harpie Lady when on the field or in the graveyard, with exception, I think, of Sisters. So cards that say you need to control Harpie Lady aren't hindered by not having Harpie Lady 1 or your 1 of 5 that I mentioned earlier. They're all Harpie Lady. This is basically Spartacus, the deck. They're all Spartacus. It's just Spartacus if he was designed by a horny Japanese manga artist, I suppose. The deck core is also pretty manageable, allowing for a number of techs for your choosing. I personally have taken to playing a Smoldrick Unity package, a Utopia double package, and even a Divine Wind of the Mist Valley because it's 2014 in my heart. But that means I also can play Dancer, whereas you could play good cards instead. It's another very fair deck. And thanks to the in-archetype Avarice, a card effect that is so much better when you can search it out rather than just hope to see it in the mid to late game, it helps give it a little bit of a grind game. Plus there's the Soul Charge, the crazy pluses on the end phase from Sign, and of course the horribly great trap card. Which might sound broken, but there's a reason this deck isn't topping at a rogue level, like say DDD is. Without Egotist or a way to get to it, the deck really lives and dies on its normal summon. Sure, between Egotist, Perfumer, Sign, and Channeler, it's pretty damn consistent at getting 2 Harpies on the board, but as I mentioned earlier, Ash Blossom is a card, and if the opponent stops the second Harpie from hitting the board, there isn't a lot the deck can do. And despite the broken means of searching this deck has, it's almost entirely done during the end phase. Meaning with the exception of Featherstorm, everything you're getting is useless until the following turn, which means the opponent has an entire turn to end you, and there's not a lot stopping that opponent if they also only let you get 1 Harpie on the board. Even the lower investments of a rank 4 like Exciton Knight is hardly the threat that it was in 2015, and as such it doesn't make the best first turn boards. But the susceptibility of the deck means it can also struggle going second. But you should still play it. You can get out an Appaloosa with the right hand, but for the most part the deck just plays at a lower level. But a fun one nonetheless. It's similar to Fur Hire in my eyes, in that it was good to use to get someone interested in the game, able to help teach a player optimal times to use effects, since for example Cyber Slash Harpie can activate in response to any spell or trap, meaning you can use it in response to an opponent's spell or trap, or you can activate one of your own to try and 2-for-1 the opponent. Plus, the deck can play well with other smaller engines, like I mentioned, a Dragunity package for an easy Crystal Wing, or the Brainless Utopia double to showcase this game's countless turns that out of nowhere can just result in 10k damage to the face. It's a decently costly one for what it's worth. Plenty of the cards are in the $10 to $15 range on paper, and with 4 Ultra Rares and 8 Secret Rares and Master Duel, not exactly cheap. The cost of being a legacy deck, I suppose. It's a fun little combo deck that has a few powerhouse tricks up its sleeve, and thanks to the advent of Lost Art by Konami, can be played on a sliding scale of lewdness, from leotard to bikini. And depending on what playmat you bring to locals with you, you could get banned faster than somebody could call you a degenerate. Please do not play it for that reason, but if you're looking for a slower deck with some unexpected punch, one that plays fair with a good chance to pop off hard and steal a game, Harpie's a pretty good and pretty fun deck that can provide some longer duels with a bit more back and forth in them. And with that, I'd say you should probably give Harpie a try. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment and a like if you enjoyed it. And good Christ, I should probably clear my search history because Yu-Gi-Oh! Harpie art can be a very, very dangerous search. Anyways, as always, subscribe to YGO Strats so you too can become a true duelist.